And welcome, folks. Here you are on another Helium Down Under call. I'm your host tonight, Ian Moore, and once again, thank you so much for joining this video, guys. Really exciting tonight. So I'm going to tell you straight up, before you sort of clicked in here and thinking, "My goodness, what's Ian going to be talking about tonight?" I'm going to have a very special guest. Ed Ballou, all the way from over in the US, is going to be talking to us on this video here about the success of the People's Hotspot, what he's been finding with Helium in his journey, and we're just going to chew the fat and have a great chat. Two guys sharing their excitement with you about Helium. It's something that I've been wanting to do ever since I started the channel, was to interview Ed. I know that I have mentioned it on some prior videos that Ed Ballou was in fact the first YouTube person that I started to watch on my Helium journey. So tonight I've got to say that I'm actually feeling just a little bit awestruck because I am interviewing the great Ed Ballou. So it's going to be a fantastic video. I'll be bringing him in just a moment. Of course, the Australian network is continuing to grow. We are still, at the time of recording this, we are still facing the same challenges that we have been facing for the last couple of weeks in accessing hotspots here in Australia. Currently, the only option is Syncrobit. Syncrobit, in my opinion, still very overpriced. If you're so desperate to get onto the network that you can't wait, by all means place an order. Be aware that they won't arrive until October at the very earliest. But there are some other providers. Linksdot, of course, one that I've been mentioning a lot on my videos, has right now gone through. It has got its FCC approval now. Unfortunately, they are being held up through the Helium approval process, the HIP-19 process, and I'm led to believe, however, I'm still waiting for confirmation that the next meeting of the DY group that are specifically looking at new HIP-19 applications won't be actually meeting until mid-July. I'm looking for a confirmation of that at the moment. And if it is actually factual, that of course means that Linksdot, as well as all of our other new hotspot providers, won't be actually taking orders August, September, possibly even into October. But guys, anyway, with me, I'm sure all of my fellow Aussies down here and New Zealanders, Kiwis, have got our fingers crossed, and we are waiting for our hotspots to arrive, or to at least be able to order them. Okay, enough chit chat from me tonight. Let's bring on the man himself. Mr. Ed Ballou, welcome to Helium Down Under channel. Welcome to this stream. How are you going?
Thank you, everyone. Thanks for watching, and also don't forget to like and subscribe.
Oh yeah. So Ed, tell us, if you wouldn't mind, just sort of sharing a little bit about your journey. You've got the floor, my friend. What can you tell us about Helium and your adventure so far? Whereabouts are you located, for starters?
Roughly Minneapolis, Minnesota area, and so that's where I live currently. But I've lived all over the world, in fact, growing up. So my dad was in the military, so did not get to Australia. So they did while they were traveling, but I did not. The closest I've gotten to is Japan. So my helium journey started, let's see here, I don't know, probably back last September or October timeframe. One of the people that I follow, that's kind of a mentor in my professional space, basically I'd followed on Twitter for years, and he said, "Hey, this new thing that I've been doing," and I would always kind of keep tabs on him. He said, "We're gonna do this free hardware drop," and I'm like, "What's this?" And I knew he was in crypto, and I looked it up a little bit and knew that it was crypto thing was happening. Okay. And I remember vividly, like, I don't know, like probably 5, 10 years ago, probably 5 years ago, at a local community meetup thing where we share a cup of coffee and talk about things happening in the community. And this guy was talking about crypto, and I was like, "Oh, that's silly stuff. That's never gonna work." And of course, there was a moment where I was like, I bet I'm gonna eat those words. And sure enough, I'm totally eating those words. Totally wrong. I bet that guy is like totally rich somewhere now, because he was like probably like half my age. So I heard about this free hardware drop, and so I said, why not? It's free, it doesn't cost me anything. I haven't gotten into crypto, but we're all in a pandemic here. What are we going to do? So if I can do something at home, great, I'm going to do it. So I signed up and got my minor. That was my start to helium. I didn't know anything about it. Just started experimenting from there, and that was the key thing that he really recommended was experiment, figure out what works, and go from there.
Fantastic. So, how far back was that free hardware drop, Ed?
I think it was October 19th or October 10th, somewhere around there.
Okay.
Was the free hardware drop, and they had to delay it a week or a couple days because there's some technical difficulties. But then once we, right the first day I could sign up, I did.
So was that directly through Helium? Was as most of us Australians over here have only just started getting involved very recently, we're probably not that familiar with the what is now ancient history from a Helium perspective. Was that directly through Helium, or was that maybe one of the hosting services like Emirates, as an example?
Yep, it was with Emirate. So that was the company that was doing the free hardware drop, and so they still do the free hardware. It's all free. I mean, it exposes me to an audience that is also new to this, and so it kind of matches that we all communicate and vibe together in the same way, and that we're all new to crypto, new to Helium, and all that kind of stuff. So, but it was laid substantial inroads into Helium and what is Helium, and of course it wasn't just I was doing this like kind of favor or whatever, getting involved with Emirate. But then as I started researching more of what Helium was, I got really interested because I was like, I like this idea. I like building things that can connect us to things and also each other. So it just really vibed with what I wanted to be a part of. So.
Tremendous, mate. Yes, likewise, I'm sure that if Emirates or any of the other hosting services were available here in Australia, there would be many of us that would jump on just purely for the sake of being able to commence their journey. I mean, myself personally, I like to be able to shape my own destiny, so to have the full control of placements, etc., and movements is far better than a hosting service, but everybody's got to start somewhere and everybody's finances are very different.
Yeah, 100%. I liked that fact, and yeah, I mean, it was like I actually did my experiments at the beginning were horrible because I went 2 weeks. I was like, I'm gonna go 2 weeks, and I'm gonna test it in this window, and I'm gonna move, and it didn't work. So I was like, okay, I'll try it in a different window for another 2 weeks. So I lost practically a month of earnings because then I finally moved it outside, my antenna outside, and then my earnings went through the roof to the point I was like, oh man, I can't believe I missed out on so much HNT, and to the point it actually got Peter Carrington, the guy that got me into this. He actually, I was like, hey, this is going on. Is this normal? And he's like, no. he's like, you want to get on a call and help us with some marketing? I'm like, sure, why not? So that's technically my first YouTube video with Peter. So that was a fun one.
Fantastic, mate. Well, obviously, you've been in this for a while then, and you were baptized as a result of a hosting service, but since then you've started to build your own networks. Like here in Australia, New Zealand, and in fact, a lot of other parts of the world that may watch this video at some point are not in the same position that the large capital cities in the US and much of Europe and now China are, where they've got huge networks to be able to tap into. They're starting somewhat from ground zero. Have you got any stories that you can share, or any personal experiences, Ed, on maybe starting an area from next to zero, and any tips that you might have, or stories that would just fill us with a bit of reinforcement and excitement as we wait for our hotspots to arrive?
Yeah, 100%. Like, first is equip yourself with knowledge. If you can't get a miner, watch the videos, like subscribe to any of the videos out there, and just learn. The more you learn, and that's what I started doing with these hosting companies. And like, don't get me wrong, like I'll talk about Emirates, but I'll help any of them. Like somebody asked the other day, where do I get a miner? And I'm like, wherever you can find one. Like, don't try and play favorites. Just get one, even if it's from a hosting company. Get one. So that's what I kind of help out with. But I ordered mine as soon as I put like my antenna outside and I saw the earnings. I immediately put in an order for miners from Calcia. I waited, 6 weeks they're going to be here, and so I was very excited that I was going to get my own miners. and then it ended up taking forever. And I think it seems like Australia is very much in that vein of they're like having to wait just like we waited back then, and like, well, what am I going to do with my miners? You know, like how, like where I'm going to place them, and what do I do, and all that kind of stuff. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like now you get a little bit of the advantages. Like you can order some of the materials that you'll need, the antennas. You can watch all the YouTube videos. Get yourself really scienced up, I call it.
Yeah.
So that was the big thing, is just learning and seeing all the videos. And of course, I didn't have that when I was doing all my setting up of stuff. Is just like, well, let's log into Discord and ask some questions,
Mm-hmm.
and do things messy and do it wrong and then fix it later. And that's kind of what I did. Is I just said, okay, I filmed the video, and then somebody was like, what the heck are you doing? You know, that's totally wrong. Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thanks. So random commenter dude.
Yeah.
So yeah, I got all that on there, and just kept iterating but documenting it. And that was the key, is like, even for the hosting company, and people, like one of their biggest frustrations with them is the 20% earnings. And so I thought, well, what's the big deal if I double your earnings? It's not even 20% anymore, but we can double that. And so that was the whole reason, kind of why I started documenting all my setups. So it's all there, you know, for you to see and help you get going from the get-go. The interesting thing about this is, like, even though I had all this knowledge and I was near a capital city, you know, in the suburbs, and I could kind of like pick up, like by putting an antenna on top of my house, I could pick up all the way downtown, but there wasn't that network elsewhere. And the biggest problem was finding hosts, because you're gonna have to go through the, you know, what is it? What does it do? Does it steal my internet? What were some of the things I heard?
I can only imagine.
Give me Wi-Fi, and like all these things, you're just like, what is it again? Like I have to open up ports, you know, like it's very strange, and you're like, but it will connect things, and it will do things, and you get paid. I mean, like that's pretty nice too. So, but it was really frustrating to try and figure out how to do those sales pitches. And
Mm-hmm.
if there was anything, like one skill, is that's what you need in that ability to find hosts. Because
Yes.
even if you have, like, if I dump 50 miners in your hands, which I don't have 50 miners, but if I did, like, you would need some place to put them. And so, like, from a tactical standpoint or a
Mm-hmm.
strategy standpoint, having that skill set, and being able to work your network, or find a new network, or
Mm-hmm.
find some different ways to place them, is another thing. So, and then of course, lastly, is like just placing them and getting them outside. So, in that, I started working on a network in a rural spot, and I put right away a miner from Emirate, and then placed it in a rural location, thinking, well, you know, maybe someone else will see it and then order some miners and then come and be
Mm-hmm.
nearby me. And maybe that happened, but the person did not go with a hosting company, and they actually bought their own, and so they had to wait just like I did. And so it was slow, like it just was agonizingly slow to watch that network grow. And then I ended up building more of it myself.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way it goes. But it was interesting to see those earnings slowly come in, and I thought, oh man, I get five, because I mean it was relatively small town, so I was like, oh, in that 3 to 5 zone, I'm going to make maximum earnings, and it's going to be like full max, like same as my suburban setup. And it just wasn't the case, and I was pretty frustrated at that. Like I was like, oh, this is what I thought would happen, and it didn't. So I've actually amped up the number of in thinking about that in forward, is like trying to hit that like 7 to 8 hotspots per kind of area, because not all of them will communicate. They'll hit some building, or they won't be up high enough, or they'll, you know,
Mm-hmm.
just the setup doesn't work to get it as high as it needs to be to have nice free communication. So having extra in there, layers of redundancy, will help you get to that peak mining. And so that was a lesson that I learned. So it was like, well, all right, we'll get a couple extra miners and we'll get it going. And yeah, there was a great long shots in too. And that's another part that I learned about this, is like, even from my setup, was, I mean, I was pretty remote at the beginning. in the suburbs, not very many around. There was like maybe one or two that were really close to me, and then everything else was really far away. And so that was the big thing, was that fringes of the network can be awesome. And once you stake your claim in there, then the network grows out to you, and you have some time. And so that's another thing to think about as you grow in rings around a city or something like that, is very helpful. But of course, if you're doing your own little cluster, then that's, placement is more so who's going to host you, and you just throw a bunch of miners in that
Sure.
area.
Yeah, obviously, looking for hosts is a whole different challenge in itself. It's a challenge that I will be facing. I have six hotspots on order, of which one will be placed here. I have 3 locations that have already confirmed, and well, the other 3 I do have tentative locations, but yeah, it will be a challenge. But Ed, I'm really interested to know, because it given that all of us here in Australia, we don't have that physical network, or actually we're just starting to get it now. It's starting to happen. But could you describe maybe the benefits of your networks with internal, like just having a hotspot stuck in a window versus having a hotspot on the window ledge with, maybe I've seen photographs and things on YouTube where people have got an antenna hanging in their window, to everything to having a 50-foot antenna mast on the top of their house.
You start with, I just put it in the window, and usually that doesn't work at first. It works later on. When everybody else has their nice, outdoor setups, it can really support that fill of very nice and light and dainty installs, of where you just have a miner in the windowsill, and that really works. No holes to be drilled, no cables to be ran. That's awesome. Like, and I was so frustrated. I did all this work into developing a small network, and here this one little guy is outperforming like everything else, and I'm like, did all that hard work, and now this one that's sitting in a windowsill is outperforming everything. And so that was pretty humbling. But that was also like a testament to, like, yeah, I own my network. I got that thing really working great, such that I can make that happen. And so it makes the sell a lot easier for those skeptical hosts, because then you start building that network, and then they're like, oh, I see how much
Yeah.
that John is making over there. And then they're like, okay, I know John, I can go talk to him. And they're talking to each other, and then that really works well. And you're like, can I stick a miner in your
Yeah.
windowsill? Yeah, sure.
It's amazing how good news travels fast, isn't it, Ed? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Once you start, what of course we need to avoid is that the next door neighbour doesn't see the great success and says, "Oh, I want to put one of those in my place." Yeah, 300 meters. I'm sorry.
Yep, yep, 100%. That's a tough one to swallow, and that will happen.
Yeah.
And what I've seen people consulting and offering consulting services for placement, and while that's great when you're trying to stake your claim, and if you're like going way out to the fringes, like I was, it's great to put a claim there, and like have a really good signal and do all that work. But the reality is that network will flood in, and eventually it could be your next neighbor, and you have no control over that, other than like, hey, dude, can we just work it out such that whatever,
Yeah.
to rehome it or whatever. So, but yeah, that's the tough part. It's inevitable. It's like your best placements will probably get foiled at some point, and so that's another reality as the network really grows. So that, like, like from now, right now, that doesn't seem like a reality at all. But skipping forward in time, as the network grows, you're gonna deal with it.
It will be
somebody's
here.
gonna be shaking their fist. I can't believe you, neighbor.
Yeah. It's funny with the growth of the network. When I first saw Helium, I mean, I was introduced to Helium as a result of investing in crypto, and I was wondering what this HNT token was that was going gangbusters. So I did some research, saw it, fell in love with it. Now I'm just totally obsessed by it. But at that point, I believe we were at about 23,000. I can't actually recall the number that we were exactly at, but it was under 25,000 hotspots on the network. And I've got the screen in front of me at the moment. At the time of recording this, we are at 70,485. So the network has almost tripled in size since I first saw Helium. Goodness, that was March. 3 to 3.5 months, we have tripled the size of the network, and if it wasn't for all of the delays in the hardware chain at the moment, we would probably be double where we are right now. It's just so many factors affecting the supply of hardware. But if I can go, I think you were sort of starting to go to it earlier on. I may have taken you off with the antennas. So there was the one in the windowsill. Have you actually placed outdoor antennas and changed the heights? And obviously every location will be different, but just relative, to give an example, to say, well, yes, I saw a 25% growth or a 50% growth, or I could hit hotspots that were 25 kilometers away, or maybe speaking your language, 20 miles away, that I couldn't hit previously.
Yeah, fortunately, it's all kilometers in the. I remember like when I put my first hotspot up, I was like, watching the witnesses, and I'm like, oh, I got 5 kilometers away. Like at first, it was the really close one, like whatever it was, a mile away, and then it was like, oh, I got 12 kilometers. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And like I got like in my 8 dBi. For the longest time, I actually thought my 8 dBi was a 5.8 dBi, but it was actually an 8 dBi the whole time. But I watched it climb up to the point of like all of a sudden it was getting 30 some kilometers,
Mm-hmm.
and it was my when I grounded the setup and did all the things I was supposed to do and got nice cables and everything. And then when I hit 35 kilometers, I was like, oh my goodness, that is just awesome. Like
Yeah.
that's really cool. And so at that time I thought, oh, distance equaled HNT. And while there was some of that in there, it wasn't as much as I
No.
thought. But that was like kind of the new mindset in that, right? But of course, then you learn, oh no, it's just about number of witnesses, and so then that's when then I started on that journey of getting the different and setups, and so obviously, for the first case, the one in the windowsill. Obviously, when the network is tight in that area, well covered, you can be earning just the same, whether it's indoor or outdoor, as long as you have really good, coverage, line of sight to those hotspots. But I've seen even in a window sill, and this one just gets me. This is the other one that makes me really angry because it's still the miner in the windowsill with the stock antenna, and it went, I think it was 37 kilometers, and this wasn't even my host. It was 37 kilometers, and there's like all these like silos and
Yeah.
other buildings in the way and stuff to an antenna that was mounted. Like I mean, it was mounted well,
Yes.
like on the house, but it wasn't 50 feet in the air, and it was the 9 dBi antenna, and I was like that is some very fine-grained reception there, and I
Mm-hmm.
was just floored that this little stock antenna was making that happen and bank shotting it around, and I was just, yeah, very amazed at the performance of that. So it can be very easy, but that's not, I'd say that's exceptional performance. It's not the norm for sure. So I had hosts that were putting it in Windows. I had hosts that had just the cable going outside to the antenna, so a longer cable, and then eventually work to get some of them on enclosures, and then replace those long ones with the ultimate enclosure setups and on power over Ethernet. So that's what a lot of them are, and then I'm converting them, and they liked it so much, they're like, hey, I want to just buy this from you. And so we worked out really good deals with the hosts, and they're very pleased. That it would make other people very frustrated of how much the deals are. And the nice thing is it's kind of like friends who have known me a long time, like
Yeah.
over 10 years, and so it's nice, just hey, they've known me since way
Yeah.
before like I was even thinking about starting a YouTube channel or anything like that. So
It's nice to be able to
yeah.
give back. How about you tell us about what you've been working on for the last, I think it's the last couple of months, in building a sort of a community driven support network, if you like. And many people on the Helium Down Under call may not know what we're talking about, so maybe you better take it back to the start and then tell us what's so exciting about just the last 24 hours in relation to us down
Yeah,
under.
absolutely. So it all started back. I had my Emirate miners making 20%, and I had my orders in, and then they got delayed. And I was like, oh, okay, well, it's not gonna be bad. I'll get these in January. It's not a big deal. I'm gonna go order myself some nice antennas and, get ready. And then they just kept slipping in dates. And then at some point, I remember being really like viscerally frustrated and like catching a lot of like the similar vibe from the Discord and like having to make a choice. Like, am I gonna get frustrated and like angry about this and like throw my anger at somebody online, or what can I do about this? And so I was struggling with that idea, and I was like, I don't want to be jerk about this. It seems like they're trying to like assume best intentions, right? And so I started the YouTube channel and talking about my setup, and I was making a lot. So I was like, well, if I can just share this with other people, we'll do it. Um, so when I did that though, then I got reached out to by the team at Helium, and they're like, we like your stuff. We want to send you a free miner. And I'm like,
Oh, what?
I, I already have some on order. And now you're gonna like actually get I'm gonna get one before I actually ordered mine. And like all of a sudden my mind is exploding, and I'm so excited that I got this. And I was like a little school kid, just very very excited at my first miner. It was so special that I was going to be able to like obviously earn like to the top that I could, and then it was free. And so sharing that. Well, then the moment though the foot came down, once the next email came in from the first manufacturer saying, we'd like to give you a free hotspot, and you can check this out. And I'm like, oh, oh, oh man, all these people are so pissed that they haven't gotten their miners, and they're just reaming the people on Discord. And I'm like, oh, how could I do
Yeah.
like I just like there was this huge moment of like I can't, like there's some shred like important core value of mine that I would be infringing upon. And so I said, what am I going to do with this? And so I was vacillating it, like I had done a lot of YouTubing up to that point. And so I threw it out to the audience. I'm like, all right, here's three options. And I listed them out. Like, I think it was like, one was I could just give it away. Another one was I could establish a program like I'm going to talk about. And then the third one was I just keep it for myself because I've been doing a good job. And I threw it out, and we had all the votes on there, and it was actually a lot closer than I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be a landslide by all means, but the audience was awesome. They're like, I thought it was going to be all like give it away, and no,
Pick me,
like they
pick
actually
me.
voted for, they actually voted to have the People's Hotspot created. It was either I take it for myself or create the People's Hotspot. And so the People's Hotspot is a program that I thought would be awesome to be like, what if we could do if we could just make a difference to one person in the queue, like just as I like that moment of when I received my first miner and how much like I was like my own miner, and I was very excited about that. So what if we could do that for everybody, and cast it through almost like a skipping stone across a series of hosts that were already in the queue waiting for their miners, some patiently, others not so much, and then alleviate some of that tension, some of that frustration in the community around that. And so I said, what if we could take this hotspot and get as many people as we could, just have it keep going through the queue until it reaches some point of that it's really not a bother to wait for their miners anymore. And so that's when the program was born. And so immediately I talked about that in a video, and then I had another manufacturer reach out, and they said, hey, we're already intending to send you a miner. By the way, we would like to send you another one because we want one dedicated just to this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, whoa, that's really cool. So I'd have one to demo with and
Yes.
make videos on, and then another one to send forward through the community. And I was like, I really like this idea because then everybody get like, the dynamic view of these, and really like every manufacturer wants their stuff out there.
Mm-hmm.
And so to cast it forward like that, and send it through a bunch of people in the queue, like they wish, I mean, if, and as I talk to the manufacturers, they wish they could just deploy all the hotspots, and just get them out. But that's just not the case. And so this was a symbol, I felt like, of that whole intention, the very prime example of that. And so then I said I want it to be almost as good as possible, for as almost close to possible as owning it yourself. And so I was like, we're going to go all out on this ratio. We're going to make it 95% to the host, and 5% it's not going to go back to me. This is going to be a community fund. And really, so far it's pretty much just paid for shipping. And oh my gosh, shipping overseas is very expensive.
Shipping
Especially when you
overseas.
get hit. Yeah.
Have you shipped overseas? Have you, Ed? Have you?
Yeah. I was able to score a minor for the EU and UK. And so we shipped one over there. I love the name, Digital Lava Dragon.
Oh
So
yeah.
I love the really cool names. Those are awesome. So got that one. And then I was able to score one more minor just recently. This is an exciting announcement. So we have the People's Hotspot in Australia, and that has just come online, and its name is Quick Vanilla Mandrill.
Oh yeah. Well, I think at that stage, Ed, I need to actually change over screen. Here we go. Quick Vanilla Mandrill. There we go. So in the suburb of Carrington. So Ed, can you tell me, how did you choose this particular individual, and what do you see the future of this particular hotspot actually is now that it's landed on the Australian soil?
Yeah, so the good news is, number one, this miner will never leave Australia. It will stay there. Like, even long after the program is done, we'll figure out some way to gift it around or something like that. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not going to take it back. So that's the coolest news, is the mandrill will never leave. And so it's gonna have to break before it leaves, but hopefully it doesn't do that soon.
Yeah.
So I kind of put out some feelers to some friends. I was like, do you know anybody in Australia that would love to host this? And I was just trying to activate my network, and it just wasn't happening. And lo and behold, there was somebody on my YouTube channel that had commented a bunch of times. And when I announced that I had this minor, and I did a kind of an obscure announcement for it first, but then a little bit more open announcement, and they responded, they're like, "Hey, I've been watching your channel for like months, and like I'd love to host that." And so I'm like, "Oh, cool." And so then, like, I was like, "Hit me up on Discord, and we can I can get you in the queue." And that's the mechanic that I do. So anybody who has orders in with existing manufacturers at this point, it doesn't matter who it is. I only have one, so it doesn't matter how many manufacturers there are that are shipping to Australia. But basically, I just order those by order number. And I think for these cases, I'm probably going to have to do like by order date or something like that,
Sure.
or order expected delivery. I don't know. But like, again, the intention is to maximize the number of hosts, so we get somebody who's going to get their hotspot really soon, and then deploy it to them so they get it a little bit sooner, and then host it till the next one, till they get their miner, and then pass it forward to the next one.
Okay.
And so it just leapfrogs as fast as
So
possible.
the intent here isn't that one per being gifted. This particular individual here, whoever has this, they already have Helium Hotspot on order, and when their hotspot arrives, this will then be passed on to the next person who is currently waiting. Is that correct?
Yes, yep. I'll just have the queue of people, and really the only way I've done it is really primarily on Discord. I have taken a couple
Mm-hmm.
of entries over Twitter, but Discord has been the primary means for logging them, and that's the key phrase. You're in the queue. And so
Okay.
then that means I've got you in, and I've got everything sorted out so
Yeah.
that I can go through it. And I don't take any personal details, no addresses, until I actually say you've been selected as the host.
Terrific.
And then we work out the address details. And then there's only basically me and then the host. And we can work this out.
Mm.
However, I really respect privacy in all this. So we
Sure.
try and respect that as much as we can. So um, basically, only a couple people will know the address. But then we also invite you to a group on Discord of current and former hosts of the People's Hotspot. So worldwide community
Yeah.
that's growing, and so it's a lot of fun.
I'm so excited. I'm so excited, and feel so happy for what you're doing. That this is sort of like a driven exercise, because we don't have anything to reach out to. But there's something that I'll bring up on the screen here right now, and I don't know. This was probably not by design. It's just the way that it happened, because the only units which have currently to Australia before now were Nebra units, and when we have a look down, this is in fact our first Kel-chip. So it's our first rack or Kel-chip miner on the Australian map. Is really exciting. It means that there's probably more to come, and there are probably many thousands of hotspots on order from Nebra, from RAK, and more recently from Syncrobit. The other companies that we in Australia are holding out for is Linksdot. I've been actually talking the managing director or the founder and director of the company to ensure that Australia does actually get a slice of the pie and that it all doesn't skip over to the US again. And there are another couple of companies as well, but it's just really wonderful to see something other than Nebra showing on the map. It makes it real.
And I don't know how that happened. It was like I made a special request. They're like, would you like a different miner? And I said, well, how about one of the, like, I was like, it would be great to get another EU miner and have two. Like, that would be awesome. Like, maybe potential in the future for community funds to purchase more of the People's Hotspots. But for right now, it's like, let's try and like go for worldwide first, and then we'll work on building numbers later. And so yeah, so that's how I said, could you do an AU miner? Is that even possible? And I was like, check, and if it's no big deal, then we'll go with another EU miner. And so that's how it happened.
Ed, I don't have your Discord channel, but we'll make sure that that's put in comments of this video. I would love, I'm not even a member of your Discord, so I'd love to join that as well. Of course, here in Australia, we've got our Australian Early Adopters Facebook page group, which is our primary network, which is sitting at around about 3,500. Likewise, the link to that group in the comments of the, also make sure you're into that so you can stay connected. So Ed, thank you so much for joining me on the Helium Down Under call. Thanks for sharing your stories with the Australian New Zealanders down here. Thank you so much for starting the People's Hotspot. And thank you so much for sharing that with us down here in Australia. And whilst I'm not personally holding your host, hopefully your host is a part of our Australian community in the Facebook group. And maybe if you could reach out to them and just see that they are connected over here, we'd love to sort of share their adventure as they go through. And being one of the first pioneers that are truly on the network, it would be awesome to draw from their experiences as we go along.
Definitely. Thank you for the invitation and the time, and thank you to your audience as well. So excited to build this worldwide network.
Fantastic. Awesome. Okay, well, with that, we'll close it out. Thanks, guys. Remember, subscribe, like the video. It helps us to help the algorithm get the message out there to other people, and we'll see you again very soon on the next Helium Down Under call.